Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Yumesh Gupta, and today we are going to talk about a new interview programming question. In this question, we are going to create a custom hook called use timer. The question is based in React.js. So basically, we have seen a lot of timers, which in the most layman terms, you have a total duration, and on every second, the timer decreases. So that's the functionality we are going to build in React. It is an intermediary question due to some concepts, but overall, it's a very simple and straightforward question. So let's take a look at the problem statement now. So as I mentioned that we are going to create a custom hook called use timer that provides the following API. The first thing you need to understand is that use timer, basically a custom hook, is nothing more than a simple function which takes some inputs and returns something, maybe an array or maybe an object. A lot of people get, when I present this question in interviews, or I've seen people getting overwhelmed when they hear the word custom hook. So in the most layman term, it's just a function. You can do anything in that function that you would do in a normal function. So in this question, the use timer, it will take total time, which is the total duration, and it will return an object that has four keys. One is running, that is going to be a boolean, which will tell us what is the current status of the timer. Is it running or is it paused? The second one would be start. It is going to be a function that is used to start the timer. Stop, again a function that is going to stop the timer. The fourth and the last key in the object would be seconds. That is going to tell us the number of seconds remaining in the timer. So the problem statement, we have to show two buttons on the screen. One is a start button and one is a stop button. When we click on the start button, then it should start the timer and it should show the number of remaining seconds on the screen. When we click on the stop button, then it, or when the timer reaches zero, then it should reset to the original time. Let's say we pass 5 seconds as the original time. So when we click on stop button, or when we the timer reaches to zero, then the timer resets to the original time, and it should show no timer running on the screen. Pretty straightforward. So let's take a look at the demo, what we are going to build by the end of this question, what would be the output. So this is the implementation. We have a simple no timer. As of now, the timer is not running. When we click on start timer, then the time, for original 5 second, it resets. And when it reaches to zero, then it resets to the original value. And if the timer we start every second, it decreases by 1 second. And if we click on the stop button, then it resets to the original total time. This is pretty straightforward for now. In the bare bone function, we are going to build hard stop, that when we click on the stop button, or when we it reaches the zero, then it resets to the original time. We are not going to build functionalities like pause, or auto restart, or those things. But yes, we are going to talk about those as we approach the end of this video. So without any further ado, let's get started. So let's build our timer now. We are going to create the basic blueprint of the timer, and gradually, step by step, we are going to enhance the timer. So for now, let's create the timer function. We create use timer. That is going to be a function, and we are going to export it. So as per our API contract, it is going to return four keys is running. That is going to be a boolean. It is going to return start. That is going to be a function, stop, and seconds. So let's define these. So okay, is running. For now, let's make it false. Then you have start, which is going to be a function. Then stop, which is also going to be a function. And the last one would be seconds, which is the use timer is going to take total duration. So let's assign that. So this is our timer function. Let's import it in our app. Import use timer from use timer, and use timer. Let's pass it 5 for now. and we have is running, start, stop, and seconds. So this defines the basic API of our use timer. So we have built the basic API blueprint. Now let's build the basic UI of our component. So as per the demo, we had two buttons, one on click, one to start the timer and one to stop. So we'll call it start timer and we'll close it. The other one would be stop, which would be stop timer. And here, if our timer is running, then we need to show the number of remaining seconds. So is it running? Then we'll show seconds, else will show no timer running. And here we will call it use timer custom hook simple title. So now, as of now, nothing will happen because our timers, our buttons are not doing anything. So in the next step, let's add functionality to this. So we have built the API blueprint and also we have built the basic UI. Now let's go into the functionality part. So in an interview, it's really important that you break down your problem statement into smaller components and then work on each component and make changes according to that. If you try to solve everything at one time, then it will lead to nothing. So in this step, we are going to focus on start and we are going to make all the changes which are related to the start function. So in the start function, our main objective is to update the timer, or we can say start the timer, and then we have to update seconds every 1 second. So basically update the value of the seconds, or in this case we can call it decrement seconds every 1 second. And also we have to update the is running variable. We have to set it to true. Okay, so now we know that we have to perform an action after every 1 second. That means logically that we have to do something. We have to maybe call a function after x milliseconds x time. So the best way to do that in JavaScript is to use set interval, and we will pass some function to it, some callback, and we know that it is going to be called after every 1 second. So we're going to pass 1000 milliseconds here. Now, in this case, whenever this function, this callback will be called, we have to decrement seconds every 1 second. That means we have, if it's 5, then 4, then 3, and 2, and 1. And also that when this second decreases, then we have to re-render the screen because here we have to show the output. So when we, to do this, I mean, you can do a number of ways. You can maintain closures or you can come up with some, clever way of that. But a use timer is a function and you can use any existing functionality into it, any existing custom hook or, hooks provided by React. So why not to use state here? So we'll import use state from React and we will take it and here what we are going to do is that we are going to pass the total duration because initially the seconds would have the total duration, and this is going to return a seconds and set seconds. So in this callback of set interval, we will call set seconds, and what we have to do is that initially if the value on the initial run will get the total duration, let's say for now it is 5, then we have to make it 4 and then 3 and so on. So we have to decrease the seconds here. So for now I'll do one thing. Let's say I call update seconds and I'll decrease it by 1 and I'll set the updated seconds value here. And let's say let's save it and is running true. Let's make is running as true, or let's do one thing that we'll call useState and we will set the value as false initially, it is going to return us is running, and set is running would be the setter function. So once it is called, we will set it to true. So let's test this out for once now. I wanted to show you something that in our app component, when we are running, then it will show the number of seconds. So let's also console log the seconds value here. So let's start. So it's 5, 4, and it's not changing. The value is not changing. Every time we are getting inside our, set interval as second as 5, even though we are updating and setting the value. This is primarily because of the async nature, that set seconds is an async call, and set interval is also an async call. So in such cases, it's better, rather than using this way, that you pass the callback. Let's say we have state and we decrease it here. So it will guarantee that your seconds will always get the most updated value. So now if I, start the timer, so it's going to be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and so on. So we build the functionality of the start function. And when we click on start timer, then our timer starts. But now we have to build the functionality of stop, that when we click on this button, then the timer should stop. So the basic way, or the most simplest way to go about this, is that the set interval returns us an ID. So we have, let's say, timer ID, and now we can use this timer ID to, call a function like clear interval, and we pass this timer ID here. But since this variable is defined and just available in this scope, we cannot use this timer ID. One thing people do here is that they, either create a global scoped variable, which I personally don't like to pollute the global scope. Your custom hook or your function should be self encapsulated. The other way, what they do is that they create, one way would be to create the timer ID here. Let's create a let variable, and we will assign the value here, and console log timer ID. So what it so exactly what is happening here is that when we click on the star, we initially, when it renders, then we have a timer ID variable. We assign the ID return from set interval to this variable, and in the stop button we, clean it. So now if we check it out, that if we check the behavior, we click on the timer, and when we click on stop timer, it is getting undefined. So we have to, understand here that whenever in the set interval, set seconds is called, then this entire function, executes again. So when it is executed again, this entire timer ID is being created again and again. And when user clicks on the start button, timer ID gets the, interval ID. But due to set seconds, it is, re-rendered again, and this becomes undefined because it is the variable is newly created. To just to show you this, if we create timer ID here, and let's refresh it, and if I, run this, so I have the timer ID which is 17, but if I click stop, then it is becoming undefined because this variable is being created again and again. So our goal here is to create a variable which is going to, persist across re-renders without causing a re-render itself. So we can use ref. In these cases, refs are really useful. I mean, you must have used refs with the DOM elements, but refs also give you an, uh, you can say superpower, that it exists beyond re-renders without, and when you set the value of the ref, then it doesn't cause the re-render itself. So we create a use ref with value null, and we call timer ref, and inside timer ref we'll do timer ref dot current, and we'll clean it. Also in the stop button we have to reset is running, so we reset the value to false, and we clear the timer, and we have to set seconds as the total value, which is total duration. So let's test this out. So if I start the timer, so it is 5 4 3, and when we click, then no timer is running, then again start the timer 5 4 3, then it stops, so it's working. So we have built the functionality of start and stop, that when we click on the start button, our timer starts and it starts decreasing from 5 to 0 and beyond. And when we click on stop button, then it resets to the original value. But as you have just seen that our timer should stop to when it reaches 0, but as of now it is going beyond to the negative numbers. So the other part of the question is that when the timer reaches 0, then we have to reset the timer, reset all the values to the original values. One thing to solve this is that inside our this set interval, we do some sort of check that if seconds is so and so, let's say maybe less than one, then we do some action, else we will set seconds, because this interval is going to run after every 1 second. But as we have seen before, that we might not get the most updated value of seconds in set interval. And also, why to even complicate this function? Our start function has primarily three jobs, and it is doing so. Why to even complicate? In When we talk about hooks, there is a very major and fundamental concept of side effects, that something is happening, and due to that there might be some another action which needs to be which we need to take care of, or something like that. So in this case, whenever our seconds are updating or our second reaches a certain value, then we have to take a action, and in this case reset everything. So the best way to do this would be to, use effect, and we are going to watch seconds here. And if our seconds is less than one, then we are going to, we can just clear interval and we can pass timer dot ref dot current. This will take care of that. But the more much better way would be that we could just call our stop function, that will take care of everything, that it will clear the timer, reset is running, and set seconds to total duration. Now it's also, we can pass the stop function here also, and there is some error here. It would be working fine. We will talk about what's the error here at this point, later point of time. So if we test this as of now, then we have 4 3 2 1, and when it reaches to 0, then it resets to the original time. So we have built all the major functionalities, that on clicking start timer, our timer starts and starts decreasing, and on stop it resets to the original value, and when it reaches to 0, then it automatically resets to the original values. Let's say we have a use case here when we want to start the timer on, auto start the timer when we have on our app's mount, rather than clicking on the button. So what we can do here is that we can use a use effect here. In this, we will call the start function, and we will pass the in the dependency array as start. So now if you see here that our timer is behaving very abnormally, and it is randomly changing, going crazy. Why do you think this is happening? So it's just going bonkers. So the thing here is that whenever we start function executes, we start our timer, and every 1 second our this function executes set seconds, and it re-renders the entire thing. It updates the value. So due to this re-rendering, this app component is being re-rendered, and this use timer is being called again and again. And every time it is getting the reference of start function as as a different reference every time, and due to this shallow check fails, and this effect is being executed again and again and again. So that is why it's getting the abnormal value, and that is why we were getting this highlight here, that it's use effect change on every render. So to wrap this, use callback. So the simplest way is to use callback here, and we'll wrap our functions, both our functions in use callback. We'll pass the set is running and set seconds here, and in this start also we'll wrap it in use callback, and in this we have set seconds here also, and set is running here. So let's just refresh it. So if you see that it's now working absolutely fine, that when it reaches to 0, it resets to is that. And we'll clean this up, and we'll clean this also. So our major functionalities are done, that we have wrapped our components and use callback also, and when it reaches to 0, then timer resets, and when we click on the stop timer, then it resets. So our problem statement is almost done. We have solved everything. There is just a very minor UI enhancement that we have seen in the demo, that when the timer is running, then this button is disabled. So we will disable it when the timer is running, and will disable stop timer when the timer is not running. So simple. So as of now, our stop timer is disabled, and when we click start timer, then the other one activates, and vice versa. And when it goes to 0, then it resets to the original state. So let's say we have a case where we have, let's say the total duration is maybe 1 lakh, or that's just absurd, but let's consider that. So we have a total duration of 1 lakh, and it is decreasing. But in the meantime, what happens is that like user clicks on the timer button and it start decreasing. But in the meantime, user performs some action, and this app component is unmounted. But we are not clearing the timer. The timer still remains there till it reaches 0. And but on the screen, this whole app component is gone. Uh, so we need to find a way that whenever this unmounts, then we have to clear the timer. So in our use effect, we can use a use effect here, that which will just run once initially, and in this can return a cleanup function, that if we have timer ref, so we can just simply clear interval, and we can pass timer ref dot current. So basically what happens here is that whenever our component unmounts, then this cleanup function will run, and it will check that if we have the timer ref, then it will just clear that timer for now. This will as of now won't affect anything, that if we click on start timer, then it will work as it is, and it reaches to 0. But this is an edge case, rare case scenario, which we should take care. So this brings end to our video. I hope you liked my solution, and it was able to help you in some way. If you feel that something could be better, or there is some other solution or some other way to solve this, then please do share your solutions in the comments. You can ask any questions, or if you want to discuss something, then please do mention in the comments. You can share your code sandbox links, or you can try this question using our platform, where it's a very simple IED type environment, where you can write any React or any native JavaScript code, and when you run it, then your code executes in the browser itself, and you have all that functionality, and you start the timer, and it's working as it was working in our code sandbox, and resets to 0. So please share your views, share your solutions, and do like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Have a nice day. Bye bye.